As I did last year, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement to help us remember where we are. We respectfully acknowledge tonight that we join on the traditional land of the Odawa, the Potawatomi, the Ojibwe, and other Anishinabek people who were forced to relocate when white settlers moved into this area in the mid-19th century. We recognize, too, the continuing presence of the Anishinabek on this land and their unique and enduring relationship with their traditional territories. I'd like to make another acknowledgement, too, a campus acknowledgement, if you will. At the turn of the 18th century, 42% of all households in New York City owned slaves. Only Charleston, South Carolina had more. It was one important reason for the prosperity of the region's white population, including many Dutch Americans. Enslaved people created significant wealth for those who owned them without ever earning 1 red cent for themselves, their families, or their descendants. When Hope College was chartered in 1866, the contributions of prosperous Dutch Americans from back east were critical to our survival. They had money to send to Hope, in part because of slavery. If you are a student or a graduate of Hope College, your education was made possible in part by the unpaid work of people who had no chance at an education for themselves. If, like me, you are employed by Hope College, your career was made possible in part by the unpaid work of people who had no chance at a career for themselves. I want to remember them tonight. I want to see them in the shops, in the barns, in the fields, in the kitchens. I want to imagine their children and their grandchildren and to anticipate what they might have accomplished if the wealth created by their forebears had gone to them instead of to us. We do not gather to ponder pathways to an anti-racist future because we are a good and noble people. We gather because we are debtors with a moral obligation to repay what we owe. Thank you. James Baldwin was one of my favorite authors and speakers. Imagine the gay love child of Ta-Nehisi Coates, Cornel West, and Toni Morrison. That was James Baldwin. In The Fire Next Time, published in 1963, Baldwin laid out a damning indictment of American racism. Still, in the very last paragraph of the book, he wrote, "If we do not falter in our duty now, we may be able, handful that we are, to end the racial nightmare and achieve our country and change the history of the world." It gives me hope to know that Baldwin had hope. Not a cross our fingers, I wish I may, I wish I might kind of hope, but a realistic assessment that when the time is right, a group of informed, insightful, determined people can make a difference. Baldwin raged against racism his whole life. If Baldwin can hope, then I, a naive and complicit beneficiary of racism, one pasty piece of tile in the mosaic of white supremacy, then I have a moral obligation to hope, too. Hope in a realistic assessment that when the time is right, a group of informed, insightful, determined people can make a difference. Is this such a time? Are we such a people? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I do know this, the choice is ours. If we want this to be such a time, it will be. If we want to be such a people, we will be. It's up to us.